not in the program. It's not quite clear to me who is performing what. So I'm not.
I'm Jacob Barton. I'm part of an exciting event, and I wanted to request if you could put up the score. You have one called Sangha Melbis. So we're performing a couple songs that are out of this sagittal songbook, which was actually a notation project. So I have sort of the notator's perspective.
Multiverse?
Sangha Melbis. That's the one. So what I did, it was a project where I put together music mostly of my friends, and they didn't even ask me to do this. And so once I had made this score, I mean, it was extremely fun to do, but it was actually a process of converting things into this interesting thing called sagittal notation, where you'll notice there are single and double and triple shifted and quadruple. There's a quadruple over there. It turns into an X. Arrows that are pointing either up or down. And so it's this kind of radical redoing of accidentals that have all these microtonal nuances. This is a song in 31 tones per octave. And what's nice about our performance tonight is for this song, it's kind of like a slideshow. I just press a single key on the keyboard and it advances it to the next chord, which has all been programmed in, so I don't have to actually know what the chord is. That's a very nice thing. But I guess it's the only point I want to make is more about there's double flats and double sharps that you have to read in the original score, and now with my amazing redoing of this, you can read single arrows. That's not much of a point. Maybe it's verschmersed. Yeah.
Well, the bariton's going to be singing this live.
Oh yes, live singing.
Is that it's impossible?
Yes, it's possible.
Are they here?
They say.
I'm one of the 4 members of an exciting event, and I've been doing a lot of this sagittal notation reading on violin and voice. And what I like about it as a violinist is that often I don't even know what notes I'm playing on the violin. I'm reading more as a vocalist on the violin. It requires a lot of support from everyone else. It actually requires that we work together. I cannot play my line by myself, even in practice. But once you get the harmonies going, even acoustically or with electronic support, it's actually very intuitive to tune. And then the reading of the cymbals, it becomes more of I don't know, just in real time, it actually works very nicely. I think it's difficult, but it reminds me of learning the basics of reading another alphabet of spoken language. So, yeah, the just intonation when we're doing, we're going to have a sing-along. I don't know if that's a secret or not. The third tune we're doing, I think you'll enjoy looking at that and feeling, connecting the physical singing activity with the reading. So I'll be interested to hear what you have to say after trying that.
Andrew, that's the second one, and then the third one. Oh, the part. I really like this next one. Lauren, you already talked about these pieces and the battle.
Can I ask a question about Sangha Melbis while this is being set up? Does did it occur to you, or did you wonder at any point whether it would be more helpful to renotate on a completely different type of stave or a grid of some kind, rather than using the arrow system, which, well, given the limitations of the stave that you're using, and the fact that it's not at all designed for a 31 tone octave?
For some reason, I find the 5-line staff not to be something that's limiting me for being able to do microtonality. And that has to do with, I think, the particular flavors of microtonality that I've been working with, which have been extensions of mean tone temperament, which means you can pretty much, it's working off of a diatonic scale, and then there are alterations to that. And so both 17 equal, which Multiverse is tuned to, and 31 equal, both use like a quarter tone and semitone alterations. And I don't find it necessary to make like a different series of pitches to alter off of, although those have certainly been proposed for certain music. But I think it depends largely on the composition. And so most of the compositions in the Sagittal Songbook, including these, don't require it. So.
Maybe I could say the places where this notation does break down, and we discovered some of them, do have to do with systems that don't use that mean tone framework, I guess. I don't know if we want to talk about specifically any of those systems, but there certainly are, yeah.
Would somebody from Pamplona Ensemble would like to talk about Andrew's piece and the notation, how that facilitated the preparation process?
Andrew?
I don't have to learn it. I can tell you how it works, but it's
Andrew's also a performer. Andrew's also a performer.
yeah, I don't think I really use any graphic notation. I think of myself as actually kind of a pragmatist, pretty traditional. So when I think about notation in general, and in this piece, but just in general when I'm a composer or when I'm having to interpret stuff, is that I think if I'm going to give somebody a piece, it should show in the notation what's prioritized and what's maybe not prioritized. And so in a piece like this, the microstructure and the individuality of the parts throughout most of it are what's important to me, whereas the sort of tiny lining up between major events is not. So I came up with a type of notation where linearly there's a little bit of, there's a decent amount of sort of ebb and flow, but there are these vertical points that I can always rely upon in the scope of the form in order to basically create the structure that I'm interested in.
Which gives us as performers the ability to really listen. I mean, it looks.
But when we're actually interpreting Andrew's score, we need color.
Oh yeah, right.
Because that's what helps us figure out what we need to do with our hands and bodies. So we actually bring around our little highlighter bag for Andrew's score because that's the only way we can read his score. Because it's
a lot of black.
I mean, Andy, do you want to explain what it is? I mean,
Yeah.
basically left, right hand.
Yeah, just left and right hand are separated at times in order to basically create the type of dialogue I'm interested in. But it's not, so a lot of times the bow is being left on top of the string, kind of pushed into the string so that the left hand can create this ornamental dialogue between the nut side of the string and the regular, normally heard side of the string. So obviously if you have the bow off and you're moving your digits around this held double stop, on the normal playing side of the string you're going to get the pitch that's held, but on the back side you're going to get this sort of weird bitone. And so essentially if I just want the bitone to come out, I can just have them put the bow and press on the string and you'll mute this side and not the other side. So I mean, there's a lot of black on the page because for me to figure out how to get that to sound, I actually have to separate the hands. But at the same time, there's no dynamics because I just basically tell them to change bow pressure. And then that bow pressure change also creates the amount of signal to noise distortion. And so there's no rests, there's no dynamics because they're unnecessary. So there's a lot of black, but I think for a performer, if they actually take the time to look through it, and also the instructions, I have like a big personal pet peeve of long instructions, so all my instrumental parts have to fit on 1 or 2 pages. And so hopefully for somebody who's learning through the score, they can quickly see like, okay, there's a lot of this like digital stuff going on in my hands, but okay, so it's really important for me to play this on these strings and for me to use these fingers because that's the only way I can access this bitone. But at the same time, he obviously doesn't really care if this like pseudo triplet happens here or there because I just have to fit it into 13 seconds. So I think there's a lot of room for, even in this hyper fuzzy notation, there are a lot of things that are actually quite open, and I don't feel I have to really get myself off the 5-stage system or to use anything that's terribly graphic. I don't think I'm doing anything particularly inventive. I mean, there's a real history to this, and I think I've changed. The only reason I would invent something for the notation is simply because my concerns in that given piece necessitate me finding a simple